Today, we are joined by Red Mountain's Vice President of Corporate Development, Nic Matich. Nic, it's a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you, Wei. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you. Nic, could you start by telling us a bit about yourself as well as Red Mountain, RMX? Thank you.
Sure. I joined the team in mid 2025 and was to basically assist the management team streamline their exploration, help review acquisitions, and also to help promote the company. Uh, and what I can do now is I'll probably spend the next sort of 15 minutes going through the company and what we're all about. So I think if you look at an investment in the mineral space, particularly the junior space, you need sort of, in my opinion, four things to align. And they are the commodity that you're exploring for, the projects that you've got, the jurisdictions that you're in, and the timing. And that comes both from an investment thesis, but also what is going on in the industry at the time. And I think when these intersect, you have a pretty compelling investment thesis. And I think that's what Red Mountain does offer. So Red Mountain, or RMX, as I'll refer to it going forward, is a dual-listed critical minerals explorer and developer. Our tickers are on the ASX RMX, and in the OTC markets, it's RMXFF. And our focus is to develop our antimony projects, both here in Australia and the US. In Australia, our flagship project is the Armidale Antimony-Gold Project, and the US, we have the Utah and Thompson Falls projects. Our goal over the next 12 months is to really expand our understanding of our US projects and to really push forward on our Armidale project, which I'll go through in a few minutes, which includes our maiden drilling program. Our overall goal is to become part of the secure supply chain of critical minerals into the US. Now, on that timing piece, I think it's important to note that we are operating in Australia and the US, and there's a significant tailwinds from governments in both jurisdictions. Now, quickly onto this antimony. For many years, the West has relied on essentially trading partners to process these materials needed for modern technology. And I guess critical minerals are a part of this. And we've seen recent supply chain disruptions, and we've basically had the West playing catch up to this. And this is exemplified now by the US, particularly with Donald Trump, providing significant capital inflows into the critical mineral space, particularly antimony. Now, what is antimony? It is a critical mineral, but it's essential for modern industry, and it has a dual civilian and military end use case. It's used in energy technologies, particularly with solar, in improving light transmission through glass. It's used in fire retardant materials, but it's also used in ammunition for lead hardening. So it is an important military material. And it's for this reason why the US in particular has nominated the supply of antimony as a national security issue. In terms of antimony itself, 85 to 90% of antimony is sourced out of China, Russia, and Tajikistan. In late 2024, there were export bans put on the material coming out of China, particularly into the US, which saw the price of antimony skyrocket to about 95,000 Australian a ton. Recently, those export controls have been relaxed and have seen the price come back. It is my understanding that these export controls will be put back on in September. This graph on the right-hand side sort of exemplifies exactly why this material is so in demand at the moment. Red Mountain itself, well, we saw an opportunity in late 2024, and we basically were armed with a very simple but effective plan, and that was to acquire prospective projects in proven areas, either adjacent to or in similar geology to existing assets. And this, we first cab off the rank was our Armidale Antimony project. We'd like to think that with Armidale, we bought in not only the best suburb, but also the best street. As you can see, we've had quite a good appreciation in the share price since our first exploration results in late 2025. We're now sitting at around, I think it's 2 cents a share. This graph is about a month old. We're well capitalized now to fund our upcoming exploration programs, which I'll go through in the next couple of slides. We're capped at under 20 million, and at the end of the quarter had over 2 million in the bank. As I mentioned, Armidale, this was the first project we acquired. This is in New South Wales on the southern New England, Oregon. This is Australia's premier antimony province. It's host to Lavotto's Hillgrove project, which is the largest antimony resource in Australia. And there it was, one of the reasons why we acquired this project is there was outcropping antimony mineralization. The 2025 and 2026 exploration program focused on acquiring over, up to nearly 2,000 surface samples, which included soil samples, auger samples, and rock chips, with some fantastic results with up to nearly 40% stibnite or antimony and associated gold up to 1 gram per ton. Of importance is that we defined a multi-kilometer soil anomaly, which was coincident in gold, arsenic, and antimony. Now, of this, there were 5 key target areas defined, and these will be the first 5 targets that we plan to drill in at the end of the half or early next half. We have a team on the ground tomorrow, which will begin a trial of an IP survey over our southern targets at Oakey Creek South here. We are trialing the IP survey to see if we can roll that out more globally across the project as an exploration tool, where it's not 100% sure if there will be much of a differentiation between the country rock and the host rock of the mineralization. We also have some basic met work underway to see if we can make a 40% con, and those results will be out fairly shortly. 2025 saw our expansion into the US, with several projects acquired in Utah and Idaho. This project, the Utah project, was acquired primarily because it's close proximity to AT4's Antimony Canyon project, where they've got a large exploration target and had some recent success with drilling. Of importance here is that our claims are located in the essentially over the same stratigraphy that hosts AT4's resource. This being the Flagstaff Formation, which is a horizontal lying sedimentary layer, which the current exploration thesis is it's a hydrothermal system that's risen up and injected the antimony mineralization into this formation. Plans for this project are to conduct some geophysics to map these north-south trending faults that we can see running through Antimony Canyon and also into our southern project and northern project areas. We believe we should have a team out there once they finish up at Thompson Falls, which is our I guess one of our most recent acquisitions and probably one that I'm most excited about in the US. Now, this is a great project. It's proximal in terms of 4 or 5 kilometers from United States Antimony Corp's Stibnite Hill mine, which has recently re-entered production, and the antimony oxide smelter, which has been third-party toll treating for a number of years. Essentially, as I mentioned before, there's been a dislocation in supply and demand of antimony in the US, and now we're looking at being a supply-driven thesis as opposed to a demand-driven thesis, because the US is trying to onshore all of this antimony all of the antimony production to make sure that they have it as a strategic asset. Our project itself is hosted in the same stratigraphy, and when we acquired this project, we were aware that there were 3 existing underground adits and an open cut mine. This again, the initial field work highlighted that there's a polymetallic potential here with up to 37% antimony and associated 0.5 gram per ton gold. But this project also located in the Coeur d'Alene district, which is a global province responsible for about 20% of total US silver production, or to date about 1.2 billion ounces of silver. Of interest here is that prior, the old timers, let's call them, they typically mined this ground for the silver and zinc and lead, and basically left the antimony behind. And so we believe that there's the potential to work a bit deeper, we'll go in with more modern exploration techniques and define something a bit further at depth. We have a team mobilizing there in the coming weeks, and they will then move from here on to Utah. 2 our other projects located in Idaho, which are the Yellow Pine and the Silver Dollar Mine. Again, these were acquired on the same premise, existing mineralization and or similar host stratigraphy to adjacent projects. I'm not going to go into these today, just given that we've got a bit of time pressure. But if we look at our timeline, which I guess this is the important piece, which I was going into before about those four pillars, timing. So from an investment perspective, we've got all our surface works completed at Armidale. We're conducting some basic metallurgical work to see what the mineralization is like and how amenable it is to processing. Our permitting has progressed. We have put forward our initial APAs, which are a requirement to drill at the project. We have our geophysics team landing on the ground tomorrow to conduct the IP survey over our southern key targets. And then we'll be rolling into a drilling program. Now, the geophysics, we don't need to wait to see the results because we have mineralization at surface. We're fairly confident that the system is fairly vertically laying, so we just have to step back and drill it out. So I think the good thing here is that our confidence is high that there's going to be mineralization. It's now just going to be a matter of what is the scale. And I guess from an investor's perspective, that's the kicker. There's a potential significant catalyst here. In the US, we have the team hitting the ground in the coming weeks. Again, this will be to de-risk these projects and you get a better understanding, starting with surface works, assays, then move on to the geophysics permitting and then later in the year. So we're looking at having a sort of a 6-month lag on the US compared to Australian assets, which is great given that we can then you can have a sort of a cascade of announcements coming out and results, which is what investors are desiring. And this in the US is a bit behind just because of our acquisition timeline. The team, we've got a great team. We have a vast array of expertise. Lincoln, our managing director, is primarily responsible for financing the project and the acquisitions. Myself, I work with Mark Mitchell, our senior technical director, quite closely on our exploration and help obviously promote the company and present the investment case. We've also recently put Dr. Max Baker on our advisory board. He was I think it is the exploration manager for Newmont and has been responsible for discovering and developing several multi-million ounce assets in this time. We are in the US and have a great support team over there and help with both investor relations, but also capital networks. Again, I think in summary, Red Mountain, what is the investment thesis? And I go back to those four pillars: the commodity, the projects, the jurisdictions and the timing. And I think we tick all these off. We're armed with some amazing assay results from Armidale. The mineralization's quite simple there. We can get on the ground in the coming months and for that maiden 2,000-meter drilling program, which I think has the potential to really move the dial. We know we have mineralization. It's a matter of scale now. Again, we're in great jurisdictions, top states in top countries, and there are significant headwinds from government should we make that initial discovery. I think from a timing perspective, again, the drilling program at Armidale starting in the coming months prior, the plan is before the end of the quarter, potentially could bleed into next. However, we're just waiting on the mines department to get back to us with our permits. So then summary, that's us. And again, there's our contact details here. If anyone wants to reach out, happy to field any questions whenever investors feel the desire to reach out.
Great. Thanks, Nic. That was a wonderful presentation.
No, thank you.
So just in terms of the assets, it sounds like you've got a portfolio of wonderful assets on the book and quite a diversified footprint spread across US, Australia, and Canada. So how should we think about your position in each of these markets?
Yeah, look, it is a good question. And I think it's probably a little bit of a history lesson here. Lincoln is, I guess, a more recent addition to the company, coming on as managing director about mid-24, I think it was. And there was basically a reset of the company. It had some historic assets. And there's been a marked turnaround. As you can see, there's been a re-rating of the company. It's been quite significant over the last 12 months. And essentially our focus going forward is on our antimony-gold projects. Again, as I mentioned, if we go back to this slide here on the timing, our plan is in Armidale and in our US projects. I think what we're looking for on our other assets, we have done some rationalisation over the end of 2025, and I think you'll probably see more of that, but with a focus of potentially trying to monetize a couple of those assets. However, again, we're not going to throw the what's the saying, baby out with the bathwater. There is potential in those assets. They were acquired for a reason, and we're not going to, there's no fire sale happening here, but our focus is definitely Australia and the US. We see tailwinds coming from government, a significant investment opportunity in these countries, and we see the fact that we're taking advantage of that now, and we see that that's where the best value for our important shareholders and all our shareholders is in these two jurisdictions, primarily with Armidale, Thompson Falls, and Utah.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
So just in terms of a look forward basis, how should we think about RMX? Is it a restructuring story, or it's just all about the antimony and the gold?
Oh, look, I think we have been restructured. The company is well capitalized now. We are in a trading halt as we speak, and we are raising some capital to finalize, to ensure that we have sufficient funds to, I guess, carry out exactly what is in front of me here. Look, the focus has been redefined. There's a new management team behind the company, and they're focused on delivering value to shareholders. And I think we've shown that we can do that already, as you can see, from the re-rating that's happened since the end of 2025, and that's our plan moving forward.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Maybe just moving on to antimony. Can you talk a bit about what it's used for? You mentioned there's civilian and military uses. And then also just in terms of that supply and demand dynamic that you were talking about before, just historically, what's the price down for antimony, and what do you think the outlook would suggest?
Yeah, so antimony, again, as I mentioned, it is used both in military and civilian end uses. Primarily for the military end uses as a ammunition hardener for armor-piercing rounds, but it's also used in advanced technologies like microprocessors, semiconductors, night vision goggles, infrared sensors. So it's at the heart of a modern military, let's call it. Right? So it's critical in that respect. On the domestic side or the civilian end use cases, you are looking primarily at solar panels. By adding antimony, I can't remember the exact form of the antimony you add in it. It's very technical. It allows more ultraviolet light to come through, I believe, and then makes solar panels more efficient. So with the world moving towards renewable energy, there will only be more demand for antimony in this end use case. It's also used in fire retardant materials. And I guess one of the key things with antimony is it's very difficult to replace. It has, it's those unique properties that make it desirable. It's similar with a lot of the rare earths that they perform a very unique function that there's no tangible way to replace them. So that's why, we look at antimony, and again, if I just zip back to where we were on this price chart, you can see what happened once the export controls were put in place in the end of 24. I mean, we had almost a 6x increase in the price, and that's driven by the fact that it has to be used. It can't not be used.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, we've got a few questions here from the audience. So the first one is, what can we expect RMX to come up with on exploration results? And when do we think we could see some potential catalysts on the share price?
Sure. Okay. So it's a good question, and one we get asked a lot by shareholders. And I think obviously the proof's always going to be in the pudding with drilling. The surface results we've got to date are great, and what we've done is de-risked, particularly Armidale. We've spent some time methodically going over the project. We've got several, up to nearly 2,000 samples that have defined targets. And now we will be drilling, towards the end of this half or in this quarter or early next, depending on when we get our APO back. We have landholder access. There's no reason why. There's nothing stopping us drilling this in the coming months. So I think that's the important thing. So from Armidale, where we've stopped our surface works, I don't believe we have any assays pending. So what we've got here is we've got an imminent drilling campaign where there's the potential to define an antimony gold project or resource mineralization. Again, as I mentioned, we've got mineralization at surface, so we know it's there. I guess the question is, is there going to be scale to this mineralization? And I guess that's the exciting piece and why the timing's important. So from Armidale, that's where we see that. In the US, as I mentioned, we have the field team attending Thompson Falls in the coming weeks. there has been a delay in getting on the ground there due to winter, with summer, autumn, winter, spring. So with spring now, coming in the US, they can actually get on site and it's safe. So it's a timing piece with the US, and that will start to flow through. And again, as I mentioned, we're starting off at Thompson Falls with surface works, potentially defining, how we can, map lines for IP and or metal magnetics, and then straight to Utah to fly the drone survey over our southern licenses to map those structures which we believe control the mineralization into Antimony Canyon itself, which is AT4's project. So let's define those structures at Utah, then utilize those structures to then you do some sort of chargeability survey, which will then allow us to move into the drilling phase. So again, US is that 6 months lag because of the winter and also when we acquired the projects. But the key pieces here is that we're going to be on the ground with a drill rig in Armidale at the end of this half or early next.
Sounds like you've got a busy schedule ahead of you.
Indeed.
One more question which has come through, which is what level of understanding do you have with the tenements, and how do your projects line up against other ASX listed explorers with US assets?
Sure. So it's a good question, and peer analysis is always an interesting one. And again, peer analysis is specifically for ASX companies is always fraught with danger. ASX always likes getting involved. So what I'd like to sort of rephrase that and say, where would we like to be and why? We were armed, as I mentioned, in late 2024 with a fairly, simple but effective investment thesis. Find projects in tier 1 jurisdictions with existing mineralization or historical workings adjacent to or proximal tier 1 assets or projects. And that has been successful thus far. So let's take, for example, Antimony Canyon, AT4's project. Again, we like to sit there and think, well, okay, they've got daylighting mineralization because of the canyon running through. They've had drilling success. They've got a nice exploration target. There's no reason why the mineralization in the Flagstaff formation won't continue onto our project. All it'll be is it'll be slightly undercover potentially. So again, we like to look at where we're going to be, not necessarily who we're compared against now. There aren't many companies that have a drilling program in an Armidale with 40% stibnite or antimony at surface that are drilling in the next month or two. Again, similarly with the US, we've got fantastic assets in great geological regions. It's about the initial piece is always why did you get it, which I think we've explained. The next piece in the US particularly is going to be let's get that understanding. Let's get out there on the field, develop our thesis, work them up similar to how we've done with Armidale, de-risk them, and then spend significant capital on further exploration, which is what we're doing in Armidale.
Yeah, I think it is very hard to do that kind of like comparison across the apples and oranges, right? So
yeah.
Look, we're bumping up on time, but we do have one last question, which is, do you have a drilling plan for Armidale? How many holes and how deep, if you're able to?
Okay, so we have put in the APO for Armidale, and I believe we've put in for over 100 holes, but realistically, the plan, and that is because if we need to move strategically, depending on the drilling results, we can. So the plan is to conduct a 2,000-meter drilling program-ish. Again, that will be able to be modified, as I said, because the APO we've put in for more than we specifically need. And if we have fantastic results, because we will be able to XRF on surface, so we should be able to get a very good indication of what we're seeing as it's coming out of the ground, we can then extend the program. Deepest hole we've applied for is 300 meters. The plan realistically is to drill 100, 120 max. Again, we'll see what comes out of the drill core. If we're hitting mineralization at depth, we have the ability to go deeper. If we find mineralization along strike, we can continue to drill. And that's the point of what we're doing. We're trying to be nimble, but we have budgeted for 2,000 meters, over 20 holes.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for today. So thank you, Nic. It has been an extremely insightful call. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Wei. Appreciate it. And thank you to the investors that came on board to watch. Cheers.
Great. Thank you. Bye, everyone.